Chapter 7. Two of the most significant figures in biblical history are King David and his son Solomon. Both are credited with writing parts of the Old Testament and playing central roles in shaping Israel's history. I was curious to know if any archaeological discoveries could confirm their existence, and what I found only deepened my appreciation for the Bible's historical reliability. One of the most compelling discoveries is the Tel Dan inscription, also known as the House of David inscription, unearthed in 1993 at Tel Dan in northern Israel. This fragmentary Aramaic text records the victory of an Aramean king over the king of Israel and the king of the House of David. Although the inscription doesn't mention David by name, most scholars agree that it refers to a campaign by Hazael of Damascus, who defeated both Jehoram of Israel and Ahaziah of Judah, an event also recorded in 2 Kings 8. The inscription's importance lies in the fact that it was written by one of Israel's enemies over a century after David's death, yet still acknowledged David as the founder of Judah's royal line. First translated by scholar Joseph Naveh, the House of David reference effectively confirms that David was not merely a fictional or symbolic character, but a real historical figure. It also supports the historicity of other biblical characters mentioned alongside him. Archaeological and biblical records also agree that David fortified the original city of Jerusalem, which was located at the southern tip of the Zion Ridge, a long, narrow crest between two deep valleys. This area formed the heart of ancient Jerusalem. After David's death, Solomon inherited a united and prosperous kingdom, giving him the means to undertake large-scale construction projects. According to the Bible, Solomon built the temple, his palace, and expanded the city northward onto a section of the ridge known as the Offal, a raised mound adjacent to the original city. In 2010, archaeologist Dr. Eilat Mazar led excavations on the Offal and discovered a 34-meter-long, 2.5-meter-wide wall dating to the 10th century BCE, Solomon's era. This wall, previously thought to be of later construction, was confirmed to be from Solomon's time after layers of debris and artifacts were carefully analyzed. It connected to other structures from the same period, validating the biblical account of Solomon's building projects. This discovery complements an earlier find, the Offal City Gate, part of Solomon's wall, and the only gate discovered so far that dates back to the First Temple period. The Bible describes Jerusalem as having multiple gates, but this is the only one identified with such precision and confidence. Much of the rest of this ancient complex remains buried under only a few meters of debris, waiting to be revealed. These archaeological findings strongly support the biblical accounts of both David and Solomon. They show that the people, cities, and timelines described in the Old Testament can be rooted in real history. Each discovery strengthens the case that the Bible is not just a religious document, but also a reliable record of ancient events and individuals. Chapter 8. As I continued exploring the Old Testament, I turned my attention to its prophecies. I started with those surrounding the Babylonian exile. This period marks one of the most critical and well-documented intersections between biblical narrative and world history. At the center of it stood King Nebuchadnezzar II, the most formidable ruler of the Chaldean dynasty of Babylonia. He was renowned not only for his military conquests and architectural accomplishments, but also for his profound role in Jewish history. According to the Book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar invaded Jerusalem and brought many of its most intelligent and noble youth into captivity in Babylon. Among them was Daniel, a young Hebrew who would rise to prominence within the Babylonian court. His story begins with this exile and extends through the reigns of multiple kings. In recent decades, archaeological findings have powerfully confirmed the biblical description of Jerusalem's destruction in 587 to 586 BC excavations on Mount Zion, led by a team from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, revealed a destruction layer containing burned debris, pottery shards, broken lamps, and arrowheads. Most remarkably, they uncovered a rare piece of jewelry, indicating that the city's elite, those with wealth and status, were present and affected. Archaeologist Shimon Gibson noted that the mix of ash, arrowheads, and valuables could only be attributed to a violent conquest, not routine waste disposal. "Nobody abandons golden jewelry," he said, highlighting how the evidence directly points to the Babylonian assault. The arrowheads found were Scythian style, widely used by Babylonian forces during the 7th and 6th centuries BC, further strengthening the identification of the attackers. The convergence of physical evidence with the biblical timeline underscores the accuracy of Scripture's account of this pivotal moment in Israel's history. This leads to a larger reflection on the nature of ancient historical records. Most ancient nations wrote for the purpose of propaganda. Their monuments, inscriptions, and official chronicles highlighted triumphs, building projects, and the king's glory, while defeats, moral failings, and humiliating events were carefully omitted. Nebuchadnezzar, for example, left behind inscriptions celebrating the construction of Babylon's outer walls. On one cylinder, he boasted, "I built a strong wall that cannot be shaken with bitumen and baked bricks. I laid its foundation on the breast of the netherworld, and I built its top as high as a mountain. The fortifications of Asagila and Babylon I strengthened and established the name of my reign forever." Nowhere in these royal records would you find mention of personal failure or disgrace, such as the incident recorded in Daniel, where Nebuchadnezzar is humbled by God and temporarily loses his sanity. Such an event, though profound, wouldn't serve the purposes of imperial pride. And that's precisely what makes the Bible so unique. It tells its story, warts and all. Unlike secular monarchs who sought to glorify their legacies, the biblical authors preserved not just victories but also failures, flaws, and divine rebukes. It's a book that aims to tell God's story, not man's, which explains its unflinching honesty. One of the most stunning examples of prophecy comes from Daniel chapter 2, where Daniel interprets a troubling dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. In the dream, the king saw a massive statue composed of various metals: a head of gold, a chest and arms of silver, a belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet partly of iron and partly of clay. Then a rock cut without human hands struck the statue's feet, shattering the entire image. The metals were blown away like chaff in the wind, and the rock grew into a mountain that filled the earth. Daniel revealed that the statue represented a series of successive world empires. The head of gold was Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar himself, king of kings, whom God had given dominion. The chest of silver represented an inferior kingdom to follow, eventually fulfilled by the Medo-Persian Empire, which conquered Babylon about 68 years later. The bronze belly and thighs stood for the next great empire, Greece, which dominated the known world under Alexander the Great. The iron legs symbolized the Roman Empire, powerful and enduring. The feet of iron and clay depicted a divided and weakened kingdom, strong in some areas, fragile in others. Finally, the rock represented the eternal kingdom of God, which would destroy all these human kingdoms and stand forever. When examined through the lens of history, Daniel's prophecy aligns with astonishing precision. The Medo-Persian Empire did indeed follow Babylon, ruling for about 2 centuries before succumbing to Alexander the Great's Greek Empire. After Alexander's sudden death, his empire was divided among his 4 generals, Antigonus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus, who each ruled over separate regions. Eventually, Rome rose from the west, becoming a vast and dominant empire. Its reign endured for centuries, evolving into the more fragmented but influential Holy Roman Empire. Powerful, but not as united or militarily fierce. It was during the Roman Empire's reign that God established a different kind of kingdom. Through Jesus Christ, the Son of God, a new era began, one that wasn't built by human hands but by divine intervention. Jesus willingly gave his life to inaugurate a spiritual kingdom that, according to prophecy, will never be destroyed. This kingdom, the kingdom of God, is growing even now and will one day fill the whole earth.